comes from the book of Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 6. And it was kind of fun as I contemplated this verse when I left the Royal Center Church to come here as your pastor. The pastor there set out this Bible that they were going to gift me with, and asked people to underline or make notes. This is one of the verses that got underlined and has notes. Hebrews 13:6. So we say with confidence, the Lord is my helper, I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? It's the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. So, we are continuing our series on 6 little sentences. And today I'm going to talk about confidence. And working or having a preschool at the Royal Center office, I have experienced little kids. Sometimes they come into my office. Sometimes they announce themselves. Sometimes they don't. So I have jumped in my chair more than once when you spin around the chair and all of a sudden there's something little staring at you. But as I thought about the word confidence, I thought this. Approach life with the confidence of a 4-year-old wearing a Batman t-shirt. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? You can put Batman, or you can put Power Rangers, or you can, whatever you want to say, but approach life with that confidence. The sentence is, we plan big things for tomorrow, in spite of zero knowledge of the future. That is confidence. So there's a story about Henry Ward Beecher. And apparently when he was younger, he was in school, and he was asked a question by the teacher. And very confidently, he answered. And the teacher said to him, "Sit down, you're wrong." And Henry thought about this. He just knew he was right, but the teacher said he wasn't. So she asked the question of another boy. And she said, "Sit down, you're wrong." And Henry thought, well, that's the same answer I gave, so it must be wrong. She asked the third boy. She said, "Sit down, you're wrong." And Henry thought, now wait a second. That is the third person that has come up with the same answer. Something's wrong here. So he stood up. And the teacher said, "Sit down, you were wrong." He said, "No, I wasn't." You ever seen a teacher mad? She stomped over to him, looked him in the face, and said, "Thank you, you're absolutely right." She said, "All of you were right. He was the only one with confidence. The only one that was sure about his answer." She said, that's how you need to approach life, with confidence. And that's something that anybody, whether they are followers of Christ or not, you can have confidence, but not necessarily in the same thing. And therein lies the difference, isn't it? Therein lies the difference between having confidence in things that maybe you shouldn't necessarily have confidence in, and confidence in Christ. Confidence in God the Creator. Confidence that we can say, you know what? This too shall pass. Because we know whatever happens, this too shall pass. That's doesn't always sound like the best answer, though. Sometimes does it? Especially, say, if somebody has passed and somebody is sad or upset, you don't say to them, well, you know what? This too shall pass. You might get slapped. But it's the confidence that knowing that is true. Not that the love of the person that has passed goes away. Not that it won't necessarily hurt, but necessarily that the sorrow, that deep-seated sorrow, does eventually go away. And more importantly, that the missing of them will go away, because eventually you will join them. I said that Psalm 27 is maybe my favorite psalm. I actually have it on my ring right here. Psalm 27:1. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? I memorized it partially because I got the ring, and you don't want to be able to wear something and not know what the heck it says, right? You ever done that? You wore a t-shirt or something and somebody says, oh, that's nice. What's it say? Haven't the faintest idea. But it's a strong encouragement to me. Because to me, I feel like fear is the greatest killer of confidence. It really is. People always talk about Satan and the devil did this and Satan did that. You know, honestly, I feel like we give him a little too much credit. We can ruin our own confidence just fine without him. The world can ruin our confidence just fine without him. Fear is the biggest killer of confidence anywhere, it seems like. Again, whether we're talking about faith or life in general, confidence gets killed by fear. Think of all the things that you possibly could do, that you want to do, that you put on maybe your bucket list. Why haven't you done them? Now, some may say, well, I can't afford to, or I don't have the time to do it. Those are excuses usually. Because if you really wanted to do them, you'd do them, wouldn't you? You'd figure out a way to do it. But more often than not, it's fear. More often than not, you're scared to do it. You know, I would love to have the opportunity to go on a mission trip to Africa. Then do it. Why haven't you? Well, I can't afford it, or I don't have vacation time. Do you make vacation time? Do you schedule it in? Do you have enough funds to do the things that you want to do that are comfortable and easy? Yeah. Now, that's an extreme example, but very often, that's the issue with what holds us back, is our fear. How many ministries do you think have been destroyed because of fear? How many times has somebody said, well, this ministry would be great to do, but I'm just afraid we won't have the money? If you feel like it's something that God's called you to do, don't worry about it. God will get it covered. He really will. He's kind of got this whole thing figured out. He's been around a couple years. If he puts it on your heart, it's going to happen. But what's holding him back? It's you and your fear. Or me and my fear. Or the church and the fear. Now, I will tell you that some of the things the church has done needs to be corrected. There have been issues. But one of the issues, too, is we've kind of been a little too gentle. Now, if somebody sins, if somebody does something wrong, yes, we need to acknowledge that. But we need to not pussyfoot around about it either. If there's an issue, let's call it out. We're not doing things because we're scared. John Wesley, I taught a class yesterday, and I talked about John Wesley. And we talked about the Methodist Church. And do you know what the biggest issue that John Wesley talked about more than anything else? Social justice. He was huge. In fact, the Methodist Church, if you don't know, the Methodist Church is known for its advocacy of social justice. We're known for some other things that we don't want to talk about, but we're known for that. We need to call out issues. We need to call out when there's a problem. When people are more focused on whether or not that person, well, that person's poor, but how did they get poor? How did they probably did it to themselves, so they really don't need any help. They need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Well, you know what? The problem is sometimes they don't even have the bootstraps. It doesn't matter whether or not somebody has lost money because of their own mistakes. We need to help them. You know, at no time do I remember Christ asking for somebody's tax return before he helped them. I'm pretty sure, unless somebody else could find it. It might be in one of those books of the Bible that isn't canon. Why don't we call that out? Why don't we say exactly that? Usually because we're scared. We're worried. We don't want to offend somebody. We need to do something. We need to not be in fear. We need to be willing to say what needs to be said. And just understand that, yeah, you know what? You may offend some people. You know who else offended people? Jesus. And aren't we called to be like him? Now, granted, don't intentionally going out and, poke at somebody just to make them mad and say, you can't do that because I'm just like Jesus. See, somebody laughs at my jokes. But that's what we need. We need to be authentic, intentional, recognizing that the gospel does offend people. The gospel is offensive. Really, it is. The gospel is not supposed to be comfortable. The gospel is not supposed to be safe. The gospel is scary. I mean, it is. Let's be honest. It's scary, but we have the confidence in following the one who laid it down. We have the confidence to follow in the path, even though it looks dangerous, it looks scary, it looks like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to make this. What is this person going to say? What's this person going to say? And we get trapped by our fear. In the early days of the United States, there's a story that goes, there was a guy along the banks of the Mississippi River for the first time. There wasn't a bridge, and it was early winter, and it was covered with ice. Well, the fear was, can I cross here? Can I walk across this ice? Is it going to hold my weight? And we have to remember, this was in the early days, so it wasn't like he could call 911 if he falls through the ice. He's pretty much done. So it was getting dark, and he had to get to the other side. So, with a lot of hesitation, a lot of fear, he gets down on his hands and knees and starts slowly crawling and creeping across the ice. Because he figured, okay, maybe if it's even a little thick, as long as I distribute my weight, I can get across. Whoop. That's not good, because that's my notes. So he continues slowly slowly crawling across, right? Getting across there, inch by inch. And even though it was absolutely freezing, he's dripping with sweat. And he starts hearing this noise about halfway across. This little bit of a rumble. And he thought, oh no. Out of the darkness behind him, he sees shooting across the ice 2 horses pulling a sled, the guy singing as he sails across. You see, he feared crossing the path, didn't he? And yet, here was a man with confidence because he knew the path. He knew the ice. He knew that it was going to be a safe passage. Now, very often we're that way. When the path is clear, it's easy. We can put all our weight on it. But the fear can hold us back. And as fearful as this guy was, he went across. As terrified as he was, he went across. As absolutely scared as any human being could be, he went across. We need to believe and be confident in God the Father that we will get across. Very often we sit in the winter of our lives, and we never ever consider spring is coming, right? How many of you have read the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? There's a line in there, always winter, never Christmas. Because at the time, the White Witch had a 100-year winter. She had control over Narnia, which is this mythical land. You see, it never progressed. It never went further. And so I have a friend, I'm honored to be able to call her a friend, Dave Filippo, who wrote a book of poems. And she wrote one, and I'll share with you. It says, snow was falling softly past the windows, no wind to drive it. So the flakes take their time, turning, some rising a bit again. Like the clouds of gnats one sees stirring by the roadside in fall, Mother Goose preening her feathers, my father used to say. Of snow like this, snow intending no harm, not blinding drivers or the woman walking out to her mailbox on its leaning post. By the gravel road, motherly snow, gently blanketing the garden and house, fences and fence posts, giving the mailbox a little. Peaked cap, blanketing also, one supposes, the white-tailed deer we haven't seen by the white pines for days now. Herd of 9, at last count, frisky among the fragrant, soft-needled branches. Then loping off downhill to the creek, trail into the deep woods, where I imagine them snuggled, nose to tail, sheltered together. Next spring's fawns warm and sprouting in their bellies. Fawns, waiting the way wildflowers wait to be called into the world, the way our grandson waits, curled in his mother's belly. Soon, spring. You see, we have confidence that spring is coming. Whatever spring may look like to you. But we get so stuck in winter that we feel like, the 4 children in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Always winter, never Christmas. Or if you want to look at it, always winter, never spring. Do you have the confidence that it's coming? Or do you fear that the winter will go on forever? You see, we have the love of Christ that leads us through. We have the trust and the hope in his guidance that it will happen. We have his salvation to see us through. Let's bow our heads.